In 1925, a number of companies from Europe and America came together to form what was later known as the Fibbles cartel. Now, the Fibbles cartel's sole purpose was just to control light bulb sales in America and Europe. They did this because they realized that, as at the time, competition between them would have ruined them rather than giving all of them equal profit. So coming together, they formed the Fibbles cartel. And the general agreement of the Fibbles cartel was to reduce the lifespan of light bulbs from over 2,500 hours to less than 1,000 hours. Now, this is an example of how people and companies with enough resources and power are able to control consumer behavior and the general habits of people in society. By doing this, they ensured that every single person would have to rely on their sales of these light bulbs and then would have to buy light bulbs way more frequently than before. And it actually worked. Between 1925 and 1939, their sales soared and they enjoyed lots of profits. Now, it did not end there. The Fibbles cartel's vision and agenda was not, it birthed a new way of doing business across the world. So after the Fibbles cartel ended what they did because of the World War, more companies started to pick up on this and they started to decide that, you know what, we're going to control sales, we're going to control people's behavior, and we're going to ultimately control how things are done. Well, world over, this is the rat race. It is a society in which people with enough power and resources are able to control the average behavior and habits of society. It's where a lot of people are stuck because, well, the road less traveled usually has overgrown bushes. So people don't have the desire to walk those paths. They'd rather use the paths that, well, are more often traveled by people. And these paths are the paths created by society's biggest companies, society's biggest powers, and all of that. But how is the rat race even engineered in the first place? I'll tell you how. First off, they start with education. Education at different levels, from primary level, secondary level, and, well, eventually university level. They start to initiate and inspire people to think about life in a particular way. They start by telling you that this is the only path that you can travel and this is the path that is most celebrated. And to further reinforce that, what they do is they create award systems, scholarships, grants, and every other thing to support people going in one particular direction. And so you see that if you decide to go against that path, you'd have to work really hard. You'd have to provide so much for yourself, and you just eventually would give up because, well, following your dreams is not worth living in poverty. Well, that's what they want you to think. But really, they who eventually got to controlling the resources started out like that. They started by following their dreams. They started by following the path that was less traveled. They were brave enough to pass through this particular path, and eventually they got to where they are at. And in order to ensure that they preserve their power and resources, what they do is really smart. They push everyone else into the direction of forced labor. They limit your wages so that, well, you work to eat and then you eat and you work some more. You work for them, and even when you're an entrepreneur, you're working to support their businesses. You're trying to provide resources and raw materials for them. That's like essentially how everything has been designed so far. Now, it's easy to sit back and think, well, if we all decide to do everything else and we don't follow this path that has been created for us, then who's going to build companies? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? But the thing is, the way life is designed is such that you don't have to rely on the paths that are available. You can actually trod new paths. You can actually create your own story. The narratives that are being sold to you every single day through the media, through award systems, through benchmarking reports and everything out there is not always true. There are better ways, and even, I dare say, more efficient ways of doing pretty much everything out there. The reason why it's not yet being done is because there is not enough profit in those things. And the reason there's not enough profit is because there's just not enough smart minds who have decided that we're going to achieve this and we're going to do it with all our hearts, no matter the cost, no matter the consequences. So my question to you is, would you rather stay and help someone else build their own story, or would you decide to demand that your own story deserves to be told? Are you going to decide today that, yes, there's a path for me and there's a path despite the difficulties, and I'll make it through no matter what anybody puts in my way? Now, I said earlier that education is one of the ways in which they control and send us in a particular direction. But there are other things that are done. For instance, there are benchmarking reports. I'll just give you a very interesting example from the football world. There is this very popular award ceremony called the Ballon d'Or. Now, the Ballon d'Or was started by a French media company, and initially it was for Europe alone. So obviously you understand that it was biased towards European players and European style of football. So initially the particular set of award categories and the criteria for choosing the best in various categories had to do with the style of play that was prevalent at that time. So there was no way that someone else from, well, another continent could possibly do better than them at their own style of play. But then eventually it evolved into what it is today, which is more like an international award ceremony that gives the best players in various categories, both male and female. Now, even at that, it's still decided by journalists who are narrative spinners, who tell stories the way it benefits their papers. And so you think that these people would give the best, but not really. They give these things to people that would move the stories the most. They give these things to people that would compel viewership, that would compel some kind of response from audiences. That's how it works. And so everybody now understands that the Ballon d'Or is the flagship award ceremony in football. So everybody works towards being awarded this particular award. So what happens is people build their lives, if you're a footballer, for instance, around this. And when you become a Ballon d'Or winner, what happens is your market value goes up. Your club is willing to pay you way more money because obviously fans are going to buy more of your merchandise, more of your shirts, and pretty much everything with your name on it. Because the profit now moves in the direction of people who are favored by the Ballon d'Or, it just means and makes sense that anybody who wants to be anything in the footballing world has to aim for an award given by the Ballon d'Or. And that's how it is in various industries. Even Forbes is not an international body. It's a company based in one region of the world, but they determine who makes it to their list. And their list has become the most respected list of billionaires in the world. But their methodology changes from time to time, and very few have even bothered to check out their methodology. Their methodology involves a lot of estimates, and you know a lot of things can hide under the term estimates. They estimate wealth of people who they want to move a certain part of the market. And so you see how from time to time they can release reports and say that based on 1, 2, 3, 4, this person has surpassed this person. Sometimes they do interviews. That's a given. They do interviews with the people who make it to their list eventually. They ensure that they get a lot of data and all of that. However, we all know that what happens is the people who make it to this list are able to move stock markets, are able to garner the favor of investors and all of that. So there's some background work that obviously would have to go into this, favoring a certain region of the world again. And the reason is simple. If we believe that the richest people come from a particular region, we'd all want to go to that region so we can get a piece of the cake. And then what happens is when you go to that region, you're not served with what makes these other people as rich as they are. You're served with the labor that allows you feel wanted, but then doesn't allow you grow past a certain point. It keeps you stunted such that you keep desiring more and more, but then you don't have enough to make that dream come true. Again, this is the rat race. It's a system of coordinated activities that push the agendas of certain people to ensure that they keep the profits where they want it. So I've told you stories of how the rat race has been engineered by companies in the past and a few well-known companies that are currently doing it. However, I'm going to tell you about something that is currently being engineered for the next 5 to 50 years. There's this company called World. It's owned, interestingly, by the same person who owns OpenAI. Now, Sam Altman built the World ecosystem to try and achieve what he calls the universal basic compute, which is a bit different from universal basic income. Universal basic income is this idea that there's some amount of money that everybody should just pretty much have to be able to get by in life. But universal basic compute takes it a step further. It's an amount of computing points that would allow every single individual to gain access to the digital economy being created by Sam Altman and his World company. So there's WorldCoin, and currently people gain access to WorldCoin by getting their retina scanned. Now, the thing about getting a retina scan is that a retina scan is just like a fingerprint. It's unique to every individual, and it's used to identify you as human wherever you are digitally. Now, the idea is, in this world where there's an advance in AI technology, we're seeing a lot of chatbots on various social media platforms performing various transactions. There are agentic AI software doing a ton of stuff in various areas, and Sam Altman so graciously created the World ecosystem to try and checkmate the problem that he is creating with his company OpenAI. So he created the problem and the solution pretty much at the same time. However, it will take some time for the problem to gain ground and to mature. So he's using that time to do some form of proof of concept. In Kenya, he currently tested out this idea of his World coin, where people's retinas were scanned and they got some amount of WorldCoin cryptocurrency. But interestingly, Sam Altman is an American who is based in the US, of course, but his company is not allowed to operate in the US, nor is it allowed to operate in Europe because of obvious privacy concerns and data breaches. But it's allowed to operate in Kenya and a few other places. And what's currently happening is, as these people's retinas are being scanned and a lot is happening, eventually the world is going to accept it when they see how much AIs will invade our space, and there'll be a need to distinctively identify who is human and who isn't. And Sam Altman is going to come as the superhero to save the day, saying, hey guys, look, I have WorldCoin, I have the World ecosystem, everyone can get their retina scanned, and you have a distinct identity that doesn't change, and you can be identified online. And everybody's going to jump on this. But what you don't know is that it's going to be used to force compliance. So, for instance, when everybody just jumps on this train and people basically are now using the WorldCoin for transactions worldwide, people who don't agree to certain agendas, to certain belief systems, to certain ways of thinking would be logged out of the system. And of course, if you're logged out of the system, you're logged out of the economy of the world. You can't transact, you can't do anything, you can't really even make sense of your life. That's where we are headed. Someone is creating a problem and a solution at the same time to benefit himself and of course his nation as a result. So, are you going to sit back, relax and say, well, this doesn't concern me? Or are you going to sit and think and decide to change your own narrative? It means enough to you, then it will make sense to somebody else. I'm talking about your dream here. If you feel like your dream is valid to you, your dream is valid to other people. Every single person who is controlling the narrative and controlling the world's economy right now started out with a dream. So I'm here to tell you that your dream is valid. You only need to be confident enough to believe that there is no other way in which you'd be successful than by living the life of your dreams. Dare to do the impossible. Dare to discipline yourself to pass that road that is less traveled. Do everything that you can to ensure you break free of the rat race, break free of the control and the constraints on your mind. That thing that makes you think that you can't find a cure to cancer, that thing that makes you think that you will not make the next engineering marvel, whatever it is that has constantly constrained your mind because of the set of expectations from society and from the best of the best in the industry, I want you to say no to it right now in your mind and tell yourself that never again are you going to be held back from doing your full potential. You're going to make the decision now, and you're going to thrive, and you're going to be happy for it in years to come. Till next episode, thank you so much for your time.